Welcome to the Real Estate Espresso podcast, your morning shot of what's new in the world of real estate investing. I'm your host, Victor Menashe. Thank you to all the loyal listeners. Producing a show each day has turned into a labor of love for me. I truly appreciate all the letters and emails that I receive from you. I'd like to read a message that I received earlier this week from Dr. Kevin Su in New York City. He writes, "Dear Victor, my main reason for contacting you was just to say thanks for sharing your insights. I just found your podcast in the last couple of weeks. I appreciate your message about the 5 principles. There's a correlation with my field. My patient's compliance is affected by how much trust and relationship there is. The idea of never selling my patients any procedure is dear to my heart. Treat them how I treat my mom. If I educate them properly, they will come to me when they decide they need the procedure. After reading Rich Dad, Poor Dad maybe 15 years ago during my residency, I admit I didn't really put it into practice. I only recently started listening again after a friend approached me about a syndication. Since I didn't know much about it and I wanted to educate myself, first place I went was Robert Kiyosaki's podcast, and the first episode I heard was your interview on assisted living. I then went on to listen to your Real Estate Espresso podcast and heard your interview with Josh McCallen on work-family balance. I thought it was so relevant and positive. Thankfully, I have a wife who's practical and keeps me grounded. Then I listened to your interview with Dr. Jeff Anzalone, and another light bulb went off. I thought, wow, Jeff is describing what I've been through, med school loans, paying them off, and now what? So I contacted him, and we had a great phone chat last week. In summary, as I embark on a rejuvenation of learning principles of cash flow, I just wanted to say I can't thank you enough for your teaching and being an example of a businessman who's a family man. I'm also glad I didn't just Google real estate or something and end up in some random scammer site, but rather got plugged into podcasts of trustworthy investors like yourself. Thank you so much, and Merry Christmas to you and your family." Well, thank you, Kevin, for the kind words, and it makes me happy to know that the show's having an impact. Congratulations on your continuing personal and professional growth. I know so many professionals who work really hard in university, and once they got into the workforce, they stopped learning. In fact, I met someone who I worked with 22 years ago at Nortel. They were still doing the same job. The company's gone to declare bankruptcy over 10 years ago. The business unit was sold to another company, and there they were, fixing and patching software that controls the phone network, doing the same job, in their case, for over 30 years. I truly believe that personal growth is one of those fundamental daily needs like food, water, love, and oxygen. And as business people, as entrepreneurs, there are only a few genuine places where these conversations are happening. And I'm glad that the podcast is starting a conversation. As much as a podcast exists online, the real world is offline. Finding like-minded people is truly where the journey starts for me. I like that you didn't consume the podcast passively. You took action and reached out to one of my guests. Very few people do that. It's easy to think of a book as an inanimate object, or a YouTube video as a piece of content, or a podcast just as a show. I don't think of it that way. In fact, as I look at my bookshelf in my office, it turns out that 3/4 of the books on the shelf, I know the author personally. That's pretty unusual. Most of the books are signed by the author. Even though I've read the books, I can't seem to part with them. The signature on the inside jacket represents a personal connection with the author. Today's a holiday in many parts of the world. Certainly in the Christian world, Christmas Day is the one day you can count on for most businesses to be closed. In the world of entrepreneurship, there's an endless supply of opportunity, an endless supply of things to be done. The to-do list will never be complete, even on your deathbed. Taking time off seems to be like a contradiction. And for those who, like me, are driven to perform and do things well, there's an endless supply of learning. I spent this morning reading and incorporating the learning into myself. It's amazing how these little steps, one by one, little by little, add up over an extended period of time to move you. Darren Hardy talks about this extensively in his book, The Compound Effect. So thank you, Kevin, for the lovely letter, and I'm now going to go down and play the Charlie Brown Christmas album on the sound system and spend the day with my family. For the listeners at home, have a wonderful rest of your day. Go make some great things happen. I'll talk to you again tomorrow.